like to introduce Elly Howse.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for hosting me tonight. I'll try and speak up a bit so you can hear. I would also like to acknowledge the original custodians and traditional owners of these lands, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and acknowledge that the land was never ceded. And I pay tribute to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people out there, as well as First Nations people around the world who are fighting for justice and for truth and for reconciliation. I take my hat off to them, and yeah, I don't know what else I can say, but I'm always really moved by when I think about the Indigenous history of Australia and the struggles and the frontier wars that this nation has experienced, yet we still don't acknowledge them in our own history books in New South Wales and in other states. So I'm here tonight. I'm probably I might be a bit outnumbered in terms of being a Labor person here. I do want to first up say that, I mean, I guess the question tonight was around what sort of government does Australia or does New South Wales need, and I guess I actually think that we probably all fundamentally, the three of us, agree on what are the root causes of inequality in Australia and around the world, and particularly in New South Wales. And I think we would agree that the real enemy of progress is actually conservatism, neoliberalism, market-based capitalism, which has wreaked havoc on our world and on our state. I think we also probably agree about the end point of where we want to be. For example, we want to be in a fair and just society. We want to be in a society where workers have control over their working conditions and have a say in the decisions that affect them. We want, for example, women and children to be able to live free from violence, and for women not to be sexually assaulted in our homes or in our workplaces or schools or universities or wherever we go. You know, I think we also agree we want, you know, a treaty with First Australians, First Nations people. We do agree on constitutional recognition, not the original one that was proposed, but actually going further than that, and actually having a truth-telling commission, and as well giving a voice to Indigenous people in Parliament. So I think there's actually lots of things that we would agree on, and I think we agree on the end point around, you know, we want 100% renewable energy. We don't want a society and an economy that's based on ripping up what's in the ground to then burn it and then pollute our worlds. I think we all very much agree on that. I think probably where we differ is about how we actually get to that end point being a fair and just economy and society and a fair and just world. And I guess being part of Labor, our priority is always we want to get into government, democratically elected into government and form government in order to do those things that we want to do in terms of changing the world and changing, you know, our own community as well. And that is really fundamental to what Labor is about. What we grew out of was a group of men of note and white men at the end of the 19th century who basically got together and said, you know, we the workers deserve a voice in Parliament. Now that might have shifted a bit now to being a Parliament that's mostly lawyers, sorry for any lawyers here, and accountants and bean counters and corporate people. I am not one of those. I'm actually a public health researcher, and I can tell you that there's very few of us, if any at all, in Parliament at the moment. And I did want to reiterate that our real enemy, Labor's real enemy actually, is the Liberal and the National Party, who we think do uphold those issues and problems that we identified before, neoliberalism and this obsession with market capitalism to the expense of humans and human dignity. I think that they are absolutely our ultimate enemy, and that's who we want to get rid of, both at a state and a federal government. So I think we actually do have a really exciting time ahead, because for the first time since 2007, we have the opportunity to elect a Labor government at both a state and a federal level in Australia and in New South Wales. And I think there's some really exciting things that can happen when state and federal governments are actually on the same page about major issues like climate change, and actually acknowledging that A, it's real, and B, we need to get cracking pretty damn quickly if we're going to address it. And I think that there's lots of other areas where we would have strong agreement You know, one of the big issues that's going to be coming up in terms of industrial relations is the idea of sector-wide bargaining, you know, which my union, the NTUU, is certainly very interested in pursuing and pushing for, and which the you know, broader union movement is also looking at too. And I think that there's some really important lessons that actually New South Wales can teach the federal government about industrial sector, sector-wide bargaining and awards and so on. I guess some of the other big priority areas for a Labor government in New South Wales, I mean, we're running on the slogan, putting people first, and I think we are wanting to show people that there's a different way of running New South Wales. We don't have to run New South Wales and the New South Wales government as if it's just a big corporation that, you know, all your banker friends and your financial services friends kind of sell off all these bits and pieces, and, you know, we'll say Land Titles Office, there you go, we'll say TAFE, we'll sell that off, we'll sell this off, we'll sell off all the public housing so that we can give well, I mean, at a federal level, you know, the prime, you know, real estate in Sydney, oh, well, public housing tenants don't deserve to live there, let's sell it off and make, you know, millions or billions of dollars, and then claim we're putting it into public housing when we know they're actually not at all. So we think that there is a different vision for New South Wales. That's what we're running on. We are running on action on climate change and protecting the environment, repealing some of those land clearing laws that have been put in place, trying to do something about protecting native habitats across New South Wales, funding our schools properly, actually addressing some of the root causes of poor infrastructure planning, which have to do with the fact that this government is more focused on spending money on stadiums than they are on their own schools. And at the federal level, we have also seen that there is more money put aside in terms of the franking credits issue than we actually spend entirely on public education and public schools, which is a really extraordinary point that we've come to. So we're saying the focus should be of government always on putting people and community first, and it's not about running government like a big corporation. And I think that a lot of our announcements really reflect that work that we've done to really listen to the community, particularly in the last 8 years. And I will say 2011 was a really difficult and challenging election. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been spat on as you've been campaigning. Some of you might have experienced all kinds of awful behaviour from people, but 2011 was really challenging. And I think that Labor has we've said to ourselves we need to improve as a party and we need to listen to the community, and I think I'm hoping that we will get there on the 23rd of March. But, you know, as Rachel said, it's going to be really, really close. I do think it's important to recognise who the real enemy is of progress in New South Wales, and that's the Liberal National Government. And I might leave it there.
Yes. No.